The greatest thing from Quebec since Celine Dion and GSP.
A pair of siblings.
A couple of stellar young men.
Two brothers.
These two young men. Two siblings. The hard-hitting pair represent Canada.
Welcome to Thinking Bros. My name is Chris.
And I'm Alex.
We're your favorite corner store philosophers trying to figure out life one conundrum at a time. Today we're going to be talking about Buddhism 201, or The Way of Zen by Alan Watts. Now, I was wondering, how common is Zen Buddhism among the Buddhists? Because it seems like this is the version that that Alan Watts made public to the Easterners. And probably in the 1970s, it was roaring. Westerners, yeah, those ones.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about the culture around it, but what he seemed to be saying is that at some point it was Zen Buddhism was the most popular form of Buddhism.
Right. Okay. So I have insider information that someone new might be listening in because 80% of Thais, the people from Thailand, are Buddhist, and they're the best at Muay Thai. So my Muay Thai sparring partner might be interested. So how about we condense the first episode about this book simply by always summarizing what a term means before using it, right? So we can't just say nirvana, right?
Okay.
Well, we can in the sense that I just said it, right? But we would have to explain. Okay. So
did we even define the terms in the first episode? I feel like when we said nirvana, we did.
So now,
Okay.
so now we have
Correcting our past mistake.
the novel concept of correct.
Having
Also,
people in on the joke.
How about this, right?
We could.
I read this book and I was like, at some point, it was a roller coaster. At some points, I was like, okay, I'm understanding more. And then there's this poem that comes around and it completely confuses me. And then in my confusion, I understand that actually by getting more confused, I'm actually getting more of the essence of Zen because that's how I'm supposed to be at my point in the awakening process.
Mm-hmm.
So my overconfidence in episode 1 about just, 8, I said 8 out of 10 figured it out, was kind of anti where I should be on the Zen spectrum. And now I feel like it's more moderate. And all I mean by that is that every time we make a statement today that seems like too concrete and explaining something too well, let's just keep the other accountable about, are we overstating what we've understood?
I see, but at the same time, I feel like the ultimate point of Zen Buddhism is
that
we're at a 10.
Actually simple.
Yeah, we're at a 10 out of 10 of figured it out.
That definitely comes later. Like, we have to introduce that.
Or does it?
Yeah, no, it
Or
actually
are we
comes in the
enlightened
beginning.
now?
That's the thing. At some point, it does say Zen training only begins when you've awakened already, right? It could only begin.
Sure.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, also, when I edit, all the pauses and searching for words disappear because I edit in times 2. So if anyone's listening, do yourself a favor. Put us on times 1.5. Wait for the 1 minute adaptation period where your ears just adapt to that just being our voices, and you'll enjoy the episode much more, and it'll take an hour for an hour and 30 episode. That's all I'm saying. I feel like that's how it should be
an
enjoyed.
episode for the people. Wow.
Yeah, it is an episode for the people. Chris is moderate. Put us in 1.5 speed. We're going to adapt to our audience. First episode that is actually doing what podcasts are probably supposed to do instead of me just talking, yeah? Yeah. So, do you have a good summary of... Oh, also, we're both sick. Do you have a good summary? Just a point by point, like, I was trying to do the whole Zen thing. So I didn't have my phone. I didn't have anything. I was just focusing on reading. And as a consequence, I didn't take any notes. But there is a good point by point way to go about it. Because I think, so what we read is the end of part 1 and almost the entire part 2. And at the end of part 1, I'm really glad we didn't skip over that because I understood a very important insight about meditation. We're going to get to that. I think that's point 2. But point 1 is Satori. right? That's where it all begins. The
What is that?
awakening. The awakening, right. So, as a direct translation, it means awakening. Now, that's the thing. I feel like Watts makes it out to be inherently valuable in the sense that he never defends why you would want to get there or why people even want to get there.
Are you a philosophy professor?
That's the thing. No,
Wow.
I know, but I thought about it because, look, in my reading, I was like, okay, well, obviously I want to reach the story, right? Whatever it is, we'll get to what it is, but obviously I want to reach awakening, but why, right? And I guess it comes back to the whole question of why Zen Buddhism. And for me, the idea of one-pointedness of mind is something very appealing. And a lot of these concepts relate, right? So why awakening? Could you answer that?
I think more generally, it's all about. Now, Zen Buddhism isn't a religion. I guess you would say it's a way of life, a way of liberation. But these ideologies or religions or whatever, they all are there to resolve human confrontation with ourselves and our agony, I guess, you know? So I think that would be my answer. Like, we're all striving for something. If people get to the meta level, you know, just not just about like their everyday problems, but they go above and are like, why am I doing all this or whatever? I think they need answers, and that's one way of getting to it.
Okay, do you have a Christian parallel? Because I'm guessing, look, if you can answer why would I chase whatever is at the end of the Zen Buddhist training, part of reaching that, I guess, is having at least one episode of Satori. So you could answer it in a more general way of, I want to be liberated. I want to be free from these, like, for example, at the very least, self-consciousness, which mostly comes up in the spontaneity chapter, which we've already done in a previous episode.
Well, I guess you're not self-conscious if you've let God into your life and He directs your life, and it's not about you anymore. You know, in that sense,
Okay.
it's the Christian parallel.
And God here, I mean, again, a Buddhist master would probably be disgusted, but for all new Westerners listening in, God here is the void, or no? Okay, well, let's start with the path. Well, yeah, Tao is the path, and Tao was kind of everything.
But I mean, it's also not applicable, right? God is not the Tao.
No, God is not the Tao, but it's also, if you wanted the closest comparison,
it's the Tao, and it's the void, and it's everything, but it's nothing.
Okay, well, that didn't help at all. But I guess we're going to be referring to, well, a bit less in this episode. The Tao is less kind of important in this episode. But the first is Satori, and I guess let me scroll to the poems about it, because they are always revelatory. But how about, do you have anything on Satori? I think that's the first point. Is that the first point in your notes?
No, my notes are more general, I guess. It's more about... so chapter 1 was about introducing the history of Zen Buddhism and how it started. So it started with Taoism, then Confucianism, then Mahayana Buddhism, and now we get to Zen Buddhism in chapter 4 of part 1. And I just got like the general gist of the distinction between Zen Buddhism and the other kinds of Buddhism. Not about Satori specific. Well, I guess yeah, about Satori specifically. The thing that's distinct with Zen, from what I understood, is the spontaneity of it. So it's really not reaching Satori, which Chris will describe in more detail, I think, in a couple minutes. Reaching Satori is not this building up of constituent parts that you learn throughout your life and that then get you to Satori if you additively, you know, if you add them all up. Satori is sort of spontaneous and you get it in a glimpse and you just have it. As opposed to, I would guess, I'm not knowledgeable about other forms of Buddhism, but I would guess if that's the distinction that Alan makes, then it would be like, oh, you need to meditate for 20 years and eventually when you get enough discipline, you're going to get it, instead of just it being something that can be attained spontaneously.
Yeah, so it could be, you know, in theory, just uploaded to your mind. If the Buddhist master could upload their way of thinking to your mind, or maybe if words weren't a limited factor, just as it was said earlier in our previous episode, if words could encompass the whole of reality, then the Tao could be explained in under a day. And in that sense,
by someone who understands it, by someone who's reached it.
Yeah. That's pretty much what it said in the beginning. So the key thing here is, because words are limiting, and part of that, which comes out more in this reading than in the other one, is that we're constantly mistaking symbols for reality, in a sense that every word, and a lot of these not metaphors, but a lot of these poems concern this, right? They're like, what am I holding? And they're saying like a bag of rice, and then the master throws the rice at them and it makes a sound or something, right? He throws the master...
It's a matchbook.
Yeah, it was a matchbox.
Matchbox, right? Yeah.
So he throws it at the student, and then he says,
matchbox is a sound.
Matchbox is a sound. Was this a sound? Like what you received in the face, was that a sound, right? And a lot of it is trying to ground you on the level of the concrete, in saying, well, I guess a lot of what meditation is, or one-pointedness of mind is, or for example, a philosopher taking a walk, right? No music, no distraction. Or I guess it like more of an Eastern philosopher taking a walk, because a Western philosopher taking a walk just thinks about...
Sounds like the start of the joke.
Pumping out a book called Being in Time and Being a Time, right? But an Eastern philosopher taking a walk is like paying attention to the leaves and feeling the wind blow on their face. And that's kind of more the concrete. But even that sensation is really more of a, an electrical impulse to the brain. The concrete thing, well, whatever, I'm getting too deep.
Yeah, but I think that's, you were getting at a good point, though. It's really about removing the levels of abstraction, right? It's not about meta thinking about what the wind on your face means. It's exactly not getting into the electrical impulses. It's saying, well, nothing, first of all.
Yeah.
And it's just about the experience. That's why you can't have it in words and and get it through to another person. I think it becomes clear in in complicated examples where you can't transmit something to another person through words, because it's really about your experience of it. And I guess when it's really mostly about feelings, you can't tell someone exactly why you feel a certain way or how you feel exactly. It's really not something that can get put into words. Like I can't, it's like if I want to take it into my philosophy minor, it's like about qualia. It's about how can I describe the redness of red for me to you in words. I can't. I can't tell you, like, I can't transmit that information to you.
Yeah. So again, right, here we can quote, I guess, Mary the color scientist, right? So she's been rosen in a black and white room all her life. She read all the physics books and all the things concerning colors, and she knows everything there is to know about color, except she's never seen color. You let her out, and she sees red for the first time. Did she learn anything new? As the thought experiment goes, and pretty much everyone's instinctual answer is yes. But what is that new thing? No one knows. Now, I feel like Peak can help us answer those questions.
No one knows. I mean, it's just a newness of experience. I think the point of that is just proving that there is something to experience,
yeah.
Right? Instead of abstract knowledge.
Yeah. That's the abstract point from the thought experiment. But if we wanted to answer that, I feel like Peak could help us here, because really she just got a mental representation, an image in her brain of what red is. Now she can manipulate it and rotate it in her brain, right? It's like, I don't know if we had that conversation, but a new generation of architects, for example, never having touched 3D objects like Legos and learning on sophisticated 3D applications of, from a young age, and being able to build all these cool buildings, but they never actually know that, for example, they can't take a triangle and hold it in their hand and rotate it and understand that the stability comes from, I don't know, you pushing at the peak of it and the pressure being evenly spread into the other two sides, right? All of these things that come from physically manipulating things where you can get a mental image ingrained in your brain. And this is why learning through doing is so effective instead of, So a big point in the book is that, Watts can tell you all he wants about written Buddhism, but that is an extremely limited version of it. But I feel like he does a really good job, especially because the multiple stories, which are essentially 50% of the content, are direct relays of experience. So you can experience them through the student in a way.
Right.
You're like, okay, what would I say to the question, what is the nature of the Buddha? And then you get the master's response, and then whatever. So here's a poem to understand the Tao and a bunch of things, I guess. Follow your nature and accord with the Tao. Saunter along and stop worrying. If your thoughts are tied, you spoil what is genuine. Don't be antagonistic to the world of senses. For when you are not antagonistic to it, it turns out to be the same as complete awakening. The wise person does not strive. The ignorant man ties himself up. If you work on your mind with your mind, how can you avoid an immense confusion? So that's the big thing to understand about Satori. As Alex said earlier, it's not an incremental step-by-step training of Zen Buddhism, of follow a stretching program to get into a meditation stance. Do meditation 6 times a day for a year, then blah, blah, blah. And suddenly you're awakened. I guess it's much more funny than that. It's much more simple than that. It's instantaneous, which is a big part of Zen. Because spontaneity is the flavor of Zen.
Yeah, and primarily it's been there all along. Like, the point is really simple. The point is just reducing everything down to experience and being there in the moment, as you've been saying, one pointedness of mind. And I guess that is what Satori is, right? It's just as simple as living in the moment.
In a way, yeah. So another thing to understand about time, because it comes up in Master Dogen's Shobogenzo, which, I mean, I really want to read it, because he praises every time. Like, all the other masters are like, okay, notorious master or whatever. But every time Dogen comes up, he's like the genius of Dogen's Shobogenzo every time.
Too many names for me in that book, though. I think I
just remember Dogen.
Yeah. I'm not as, like, I haven't read other things and I haven't listened to other things about Buddhism. So, like, those were too many names for me.
I know. Sometimes you read 2 straight lines of names because he was either enumerating or
the master taught the student, and the student had 2 students, and the 2 students went to see the master, and
and it's all Tan Ching and stuff like that. So here's this Matsu. Remember him? He was like,
if you tell me the story,
a bit of a rebel. He was by the end of the last chapter of part 1, and I mean, he felt like a rebel just because everything he was teaching was, in my mind, going a little bit against some other things. And yeah, he was very anti-striving, which, okay, that's fine. But, okay, so thereupon, Huai Jiang picked up a floor tile and began to polish it on a rock. "What are you doing, master?" asked Matsu. "I am polishing it for a mirror," said Huai Jiang. "How could polishing a tile make a mirror? How could sitting in meditation make a Buddha?" Matsu was the first Zen master celebrated for strange words and extraordinary behavior. So, okay, the Tao has nothing to do with discipline. If you say that it is attained by discipline, when the discipline is perfected, it can again be lost. Or finishing the discipline turns out to be losing the Tao. If you say that there is no discipline, this is to be the same as ordinary people, which I'm guessing is the goal. So here's where we get into, I guess, a big misconception with the historical role of meditation. And I feel like in my mind it clicked because I was wondering at some point, okay, why sit for 8 hours a day in meditation?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can live in the moment and pretty much, well, again, I'm guessing this is a simplification, right? Let's be reasonable. Living in the moment is probably different. Oh, also, I got distracted by my point on Dogen. But an important thing, I guess, to understand with time flow for Zen is that time isn't kind of like a river for all the William James fans. It's a series of episodes and things have no relation. So the past is separate from the present and the future, and the past doesn't become the present in the same way that. Can you tell me 2 seasons that go one after the other? Fall and
Spring.
fall. Okay, well, that's a trick question. Okay. Fall
One of the other
and no, so summer and fall. Is that it? Okay. So in the same way that summer doesn't in any way become fall, one follows after the other. Right? Am I saying it right?
It doesn't become one follows after the other. Yeah,
in
I
the
guess,
same way
yeah.
that the past doesn't become the present and then kind of the future in a way.
Yeah, the argument would be that summer doesn't become fall. They're just two things that do happen.
Yeah, it would be natural to maybe think so, but then if you wanted to define how does summer become fall, you're like, I don't know, the tides change. So I think to me, and this isn't what it said in the book, but this is how I understand it. It's very freeing because all of the past you, and honestly, it was motivational to me when I read it because all of the past mistakes of you are truly just now episodes that have had some consequences on you, but whatever, episodes in your mind that if they were to be deleted, at the very least, the confidence that you were never that would be regained, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit in episode 1, but it is liberating to think that way. I think, like, I don't know at what point or why we're so tied with the past and with what we did. I guess Christianity has a role to play in that, right? Because we're sinners and we've done bad things and we have to think about that in Christianity.
Yeah, but like self-consciousness, which kind of is the anti-Zen thing, but self-consciousness and the illusion of the ego, right? I'm guessing we can get to that too, right? The fact that you are you, well, actually, you are the idea of you. Right. The idea of you contains your past.
Yeah.
Right? And when that happens, the whole self-consciousness, anxiety, anticipation, rumination, all of that is a package deal.
Yeah, with the idea of you.
Yeah.
Instead of you just being...
You want to expand on that? Because I feel like this was talked about pretty early on. It's a big thing we kind of missed. But no, but it's concrete versus,
Yeah, the problem... I think that's a big point. The problem is you thinking that you are the idea of you. That includes, your past experiences and your past mistakes, perhaps your past achievements also. Instead of realizing, and this is, this is factually true, you are just you right now.
Yes. But we create all of these loopholes for ourselves, and we get it. So whenever we say something like, so mind doesn't interfere with mind, or putting mind as above itself, all of that is kind of this duality that shouldn't exist in Zen. And it's creating the conflict, the friction, all of the non-one-pointedness of mind that is characteristic of kind of Western cultures, I'm guessing. If we were, we are to, talk about the specific recommendations we would make to anyone interested in getting bits of this in their own life. Now, here's the big revelation about meditation, right? And I've kind of understood it. Now, I read everything today and I still forgot absolutely everything, but I got the insight. So let's see if it clicks for you, because it really, really clicked. Everything he was saying. Meditation is just a flow state.
Okay.
Meditation is just a flow state. Okay, so let me read a passage that kind of helps me with confirming that, okay? A living man who sits... Okay, so this is a critique, I'm going to read a poem of 3 lines, which is a critique of sitting meditation, or zazen. Because essentially, what Watts says, I feel like he doesn't spend enough time on it, because after that, later in the book, he just comes back to explaining why it's important to sit in meditation. But he says that essentially, all of the OGs, right, originals of Zen, like Bankei, didn't really care for sitting meditation. But when it got popularized, and, you know, as he says too, when something gets popularized, it doesn't have, like, you have to ruin it in some way just to make it conformist and kind of standardized.
Mm-hmm.
And younger men, instead of being kind of an art for older men seeking wisdom, it was an activity for
men.
Okay. It was an activity for young boys who, you know,
who got put there by their parents.
Exactly. And so sitting and meditation was introduced to offset the, you know, the delinquent and rambunctious character of those young boys. And it was just a thing to keep them at bay. And it says, like, not running around the monastery, literally. Because it you know, it's not a waste of time in the sense that it achieves the same goal as normal, well, as I guess original meditation, which we'll get to, but is just the most passive and kind of docile making form of being, of meditation, and sharpening the mind to be one, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Now, okay, here it is. A living man who sits and does not lie down, a dead man who lies down and does not sit. After all, these are just dirty skeletons.
I think I didn't get that at all. I remember that poem.
Okay, so I think, first of all, how could you where would you place the Bodhidharma? Who's Bodhidharma? One of the originators of Zen, who brought it to Japan or something? Something like that, right? He arrived, he was one of the first.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Bodhidharma, I think, meditated so long that his legs fell off, so he's... I guess another important insight into Zen. He is represented in these figurines.
Dolls.
Yeah, dolls. I forgot the name, unfortunately. That when you wobble them, they have a wade and rounded bottom. So when you wobble them, they never fall, and they come back eventually, but they just kind of, what would you say, I guess, wobble until they don't.
Yeah.
Hope you're understanding the imagery here. So it's like one of those Russian dolls, but if you put weight at the bottom of them, and if they were rounded at the bottom, because I think they have a stable bottom.
Yeah, they have a stable bottom.
Right,
when I looked it up,
so
it's more like, it looks sort of like a ball, honestly.
As it kind of
it's much more squished than I thought.
As it kind of should for those physics to be
To
actual.
work, yeah.
Now, a lot of a lot of Zen. Another big insight. I'm sorry, I am all over the place, but I hope you're gonna stick with this. Another big insight is that in Zen is that there is no duality, and whenever people think categorically, they should be brought over to the center. And this elucidates one of the big, like, everything happens in the center, right? In Buddhism. So the yin yang, you should understand it as like everything is in the center. So the big insight is when people ask overly spiritual question, like what is the essence of the Buddha? 3 Twinkies is a good answer. And for a long time, you know, you kind of get it, but you don't. But now you remember when we were discussing the podcast, or maybe the chapter that we first read, you found it kind of funny. I don't know if it was you though. You found it kind of funny that when asked about spiritual matters, you should answer with concrete matters. When asked about concrete matters, you should go the spiritual. Now it makes sense. Because if everything just is, asking, for example, what color is this chair? In reality, if you said brown, we wouldn't really be having a conversation about the reality of the world, right? It's just that the light refracting and blah blah blah. We'd be talking in symbols, which is why if I ask what color is the chair, you saying
happy,
or something even more abstract would kind of bring me back to the middle of concreteness, of suchness, which is a word that explored, right? Now, in the same sense, if I asked you, what is the ultimate goal of Zen? And you said brown, again, don't double check me, Zen masters. I'm probably wrong because brown would be a bad answer. You would be bringing people over to make them realize the ultimate insight of Buddhism. And essentially the best way to understand not Buddha, I guess specifically Zen. The best way to understand the ultimate insight of Buddhism, of Zen Buddhism, is it's the best kept secret that never actually existed. Right? So there was nothing ever to say. And this is why Zen masters are portrayed as always, cracking jokes and laughing at the condition of their students, always denying and telling students directly that they had nothing to teach them from the very beginning. And probably this is our 3-level program of you would probably go to a Zen master, they'd say they have nothing to teach you, then you do something to prove to them that you're worthy, like cut off an arm, like the Bodhidharma's student did. And then 30 years later, you'd understand they had nothing to teach you. And then you'd become one of those Zen masters, right? Something like that. But again, I didn't like when earlier at the beginning of the episode, you said that the goal of Buddhism, of Zen, is that there was nothing to understand, because you have to understand a bunch of things before understanding what that means, right? In the sense that, first of all, we live in the middle. Second of all, we live in the world of the concrete and not the symbolic. Then you have to understand what the original mind was. I feel like you can start off with that,
right. But I just, my point is, I'm not saying that I've reached Satori and that I'm there, but I think the point is that, the person that cut off their arm and gave it to Bodhidharma and then had their insight from that could have reached Satori before cutting off their arm and before going through the long process. I think it's just portrayed as something that you realize much later, and you're like, oh, it was there all along, I had it. And we do have it, and it was there all along, because the point is very simple. It's literally just being one with yourself and with everything that you're experiencing right now, and not being self-conscious and everything. And it's something that I can conceptualize, and I think that it's something that everyone has experienced to some degree at some point in their life. And so you can sort of imagine it concretely as a person that hasn't reached Satori.
Yeah, maybe that's wrong and would hold you back from Satori, like this, I don't know, this overly confident idea that you understood. But he could have taken another path to Satori for sure, because many do.
Okay.
Okay. It's at a certain point, it says that a student must never speak of having reached Satori, because any student that has reached Satori is destined for hell. And
it does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a straight arrow to hell. I'll try to find it. It might take me a little bit. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I am maybe a little bit millennial on this one, but I wish there was Control F on books.
Is that millennial?
I don't know. But I think Control F came around before that. But I think to say something as ridiculous as this would be pretty millennial, because you'd have to think books are absolutely useless to say something like that.
I think millennial is pretty old.
Oh,
It's Gen Z.
oh, it's one of those new ones, yeah. Okay, so I found another passage. It's a rich passage, and also it doesn't say exactly what I said. You'll have to take my word for it. But essentially, a student trying to reach Satori is destined straight to hell. The way I understood that is that the highest high carry the lowest lows. And this is another fundamental thing to understand about humans and Zen, is that everything is only good or bad, or black or white, or whatever you want it to be, in contrast to something else.
Mm-hmm.
When everyone knows what good is, there is already evil, right? Something like that. So,
Yeah.
Another metaphor would be, the other position when you flip to the other side of the bed is only good because it comes in contrast to the position
hard side
before,
of the bed.
the position before you were flipped. So,
Yeah, but I think that's the point. I think that's why I'm closer to Satori than you are, because you're saying, look, there's this long process and I want to reach it and I want to go through this process and then reach Satori. I'm just saying, look, man, I don't know if I do have Satori or not, but we're here now and there's nothing to strive for. It's literally just about having experiences.
I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he says it. He says this whole spontaneous thing, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and I know that technically you're right in what he's saying, but then when you take the actuality of the Zen training and that the standardized program is actually a 30-year program. Now he says that the goal of that program isn't even to make you a Buddha or make you reach Satori. It just makes you do something. I mean, you'll get the approval of some master, but I don't even know for what. But that's the kind of conventional path. Way before that, like in the Bankei times, you had to awaken by yourself. That was tough. We'll get back to this conversation, okay? But here's a rich
Don't
passage.
point your finger at me.
There's no place in Buddhism for using effort. Well, actually, it kind of supplements our conversation beautifully. Just be ordinary and nothing special. You're pretty good at that, actually. Relieve your bowels, pass water, put on your clothes, and eat your food. When you're tired, go and lie down.
Wait.
Ignorant people may laugh at me, but the wise will understand. I always like when they say that.
I do all of that.
Yeah, you do all of these things, so that's awesome. As you go from place to place, if you regard each one as your own home, they will all be genuine. For when circumstances come, you must not try to change them. Thus, your usual habits of feeling, which make karma for the 5 hells, which will of themselves become the great ocean of liberation. Outside the mind, there is no dharma, and inside also there is nothing to be grasped. What is it that you seek? You say on all sides that the Tao is to be practiced and put to the proof. Don't be mistaken. If there is anyone who can practice it, this is entirely karma, making for birth and death. You talk about being perfectly disciplined in your 6 senses and in the 10,000 ways of conduct. That's actually a hint at the fact that categorization kind of ruins everything, because whenever they say, 10,000 ways, it's just like an artificially created category by humans. Discipline in your 6 senses and 10,000 ways of conduct. But as I see it, all this is creating karma. To seek the Buddha and to seek the Dharma is precisely making karma for the hells. So all the striving or all the trying. Now,
What's Dharma again?
unfortunately, I forgot. But it comes up so much, and it's like Bodhidharma.
I think that's just his name, though.
It is his name, but I mean, all these names have meanings.
Mm.
Okay, that was pretty good. I understand, but
Okay, what do you have to say about that quote, though?
well, it's definitely interesting that if that all is true, someone would dare standardize a method and tests to. Well, actually, the tests are fine. Well, maybe we'll get to them later. They're awesome. All of those like passage rituals are awesome. But just the idea of having students sent to them is very counterintuitive, because as we knew Buddhism from podcasts, like not the modern version, the one Alan Watts likes, the old version, you actually had to kind of just go to a mountain, find a Buddhist master. He would refuse to teach you for like a year. Then you'd have to do something really spontaneous and stupid to prove to him that you're worthy and that you're willing to kind of dedicate yourself. And all of that kind of shows intention. And then funny enough, 30 years later, you realize that you made a mistake in intending anything because it was already there and you were already a Buddha and you're part of the universe or God and God is within you. And I'm probably sinning just by saying all these things, but and it just feels counterintuitive because at the very least, then, and this is something we said in a previous episode, then the goal of the master was to kind of break your will because you come there with the will, with the intention of attaining something. Then he doesn't really even focus on Zen or awakening or Satori, right? He's just like hammering your will. He's asking you, which way does the water turn in the sink, counterclockwise or clockwise? And then when you say anything, he just taps you on the fingers for 8 years. Then you realize, oh, I could have just like, I don't know, kicked him. I could have kicked the master. It would have probably been a better answer than all these things. It was breaking your will. Now, when you're getting sent, like these boys are getting sent to these standardized schools of Zen, I don't know how it affects it. You know?
Yeah, I understand. I'm not sure how it affects it, but because I really do think that it's not like modern science where there's an answer, in that old way that you were describing. I think it's, and it says that explicitly in the book, it's really about the master. Because the thing is, you having read this book, knowing this, couldn't go to the mountains and find a master and kick him when he says, which way does the water turn? And, get approved as being awakened, because he would presumably detect that. And that your wrong intentions, right? It's not scientific. It's really about the mastery of one person having really understood what it's all about. And I don't know, seeing it in someone's eyes, And this sounds crazy, but I think it's feasible, I think it's something that you can sort of, if you're really in tune with human nature or something, you can know when someone is genuinely understanding or not, and pick up on subtle cues and know if someone's awakened or not.
I completely agree. And I think I think those insights come from the fact that maybe we've experienced brief moments of Satori.
I definitely think that's true. And I think that, Satori,
and again, we're not thinking we're exceptional. In the book, it does say everyone, like, Satori is for the ordinary man. It can be either long or short, whatever.
I think Satori, like, a modern example of Satori would be like someone who goes to school, in a serious discipline, like studying in law school or whatever, and is very serious and has to have his life straight or whatever, and then just up and goes on a trip to somewhere just because he wants to, and then comes back and is okay with like that balance and leaving his studying and his job for a while, and maybe slowing down his progress or whatever, just because that's what he wanted to do. I just sort of went off on a limb, but it's sort of just like realizing the irony of seriousness in everything you do and just being there for the experience.
Maybe it's the moment he made the decision, but maybe not the rest, because these do seem like instants, and whenever people describe them, which apparently, again, it's a kind of not a sin, but whatever the closest concept of Zen concept of sin is, you shouldn't be describing them, but whenever they do, or maybe that's not even Satori, but they say, they become one with the universe. They don't know when their skin ends and the air begins. kind of this perfect spontaneity of like realizing you're part of the universe.
Maybe that's the point too. Maybe that's why I can't describe it as well as I want to, because you can't describe Satori. And it's
Yeah,
just...
I get it. I get it though. It's like you get the existentialist laugh, but you actually act on it in a way, right? You're like, right, this. Yeah,
Well,
but like the ending of Sartre's The Wall. You know that?
What was that ending?
Where he said his friend was in the graveyard to snitch falsely on the friend because he knew he was at home.
Right? Yeah, okay.
But then there was a fight at home with the friend, so he went to the graveyard to hide, and they killed the friend. Well, they took in the friend, and the guy was just like laughing because of the despair. I don't know.
Maybe
that's an example.
But I feel like
for
it's
me.
more elated than that. It's more like freeing
Spiritual
than...
and
Well, it's more... That's just like ironic and sad and
yeah.
I think it's about like...
But some of these stories of like, we do have quite a lot of stories here about how people reach their satori, so we'll get to those.
Mm-hmm. It seems though that with the old way, if we're not talking about a bunch of students industrially coming into the Zen Buddhist factories to be pumped out as Buddhas, it was more about someone who's been through, let's say, the Confucian system and is socialized, but then reaches Satori, and is civilized, is not going to create chaos with his newfound freedom, although he could, because
there's no good and bad.
Morality doesn't matter, right? But he's just... it's not even that Confucianism is ingrained in him, it's just that he has no reason to do any evil anyway, and he's just free.
Yeah, all those things. So let me just get back to meditation. Then we'll go to all these Satori stories, which were awesome. It's okay. A living man who sits and does not lie down. A dead man who lies down and does not sit. After all, these are just dirty skeletons. So it's kind of a critique of Zazen sitting meditation. And I think, again, in a Zen Buddhism fashion, I understood it when I read it, but now telling you, it's hard. But I think, well, the dirty skeletons, for me, I saw it as the dead man is a dirty skeleton, obviously. But then if you're sitting all day and doing nothing, you're just a skeleton dirtied by your blood and bones, and you're not doing much more.
Right.
But
living people are also dirty skeletons because we have skeletons and there's stuff on them.
Yeah, and the reason for the comparison between the two is that, well, what is the difference between your living state and your dying state? Which again, I guess in Zen Buddhism, there should be none. But he's saying, it's like you're playing the role of the dead man by meditating all day in sitting position. You can still do stuff, just live in the moment and be spontaneous. Again, the most Western way to explain it. Well, let's get further for the meditation part. I don't know if it's clear. You'll see if you have something to say about this, but even in Japanese Zen, one occasionally encounters a Zen practice which lays no special emphasis upon Zazen, but rather stresses use of one's ordinary work as the means of meditation. This was certainly true of Benkei, and this principle underlies the common use of such arts as tea ceremony, flute playing, brush drawing, archery, fencing, and jujitsu as the ways of practicing Zen. Perhaps then, the exaggeration of Zazen in later times is in part a parcel of the conversion of the Zen monastery into a boys' training school. And this is what led me to believe that it was flow state. Because remember in the Sherlock episode, where that woman was really ritualistic with the tea ceremony.
I thought we did a Sherlock episode. That would be sick.
Yeah, it's not very philosophical. It can get psychological a little bit, but we'll see. I don't know what we can do with it. I think next week we should do a movie review because I'm done reading. And we have a big book coming up. But so the reason the tea ceremony, we can get a pretty good again, I'm going to be annoying with this, but a pretty good mental representation of how precise they have to be, right? You stroke the clay in a counterclockwise motion, otherwise it'll crack. It has to be done every single day. You have to be concentrated only on that, right? Your movement must be precise and it must be fluid, right? All of these things make me think that we're talking about a flow state in which, right, there is no division between the idea of the self and the self. There is just the self acting.
Mm-hmm.
There is one-pointedness of mind. It comes to you through a ritual. And also, number 4, it's actually forcing it and being too self-conscious about entering it will impede on entering it. So all of these things are true of meditation.
Yeah.
Right? Do you agree?
Yeah. But I think I think you would agree with me, but the point is not that meditation is bad. The point is that emphasis on meditation is bad. Emphasis on specifically meditation as the way to...
Sitting meditation. No, it was... No. It was sitting meditation. This is the point. A living man who sits and does not lie down. Like, he's critiquing only Zazen.
Yeah, okay, that's what I meant. But I mean, I guess I think my interpretation would be that it's really anything. It's just living. The point is you have to be in your flow state in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, agreed. But if you were to, again, this is where the logic comes in, right? If you were to standardize a way to get to it, right? Isolate all elements, not be self-conscious, blah, 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 access the universe from within. How would you go about it? And I guess you would say, well, first of all, you got to do nothing. Second of all, here is this position that is typical of the very idea of Zen, which is, and again, there's a lot of emphasis on, the flexibility of getting into the exact position necessary for this. That might be partially the discipline part of the new wave of Zen, but okay. So what I wanted to say is, because of the yin yang, if you were completely relaxed lying on the floor, it wouldn't be characteristic of what Zen is, because you would be too far on one side. And if you were, I don't know, running, it would also be kind of hard. Your body would be too active, too many elements to think about, which is why you get into a position that does require stability and tone from you, where you're kind of in this middle state. And again, the 4 things that people do are also in the fundamentals of Zen, right? Lying, sitting, standing, and something else, and walking. Remember that?
Yeah.
They're mentioned somewhere. So all these things are kind of taken into account. They're in the fundamentals. But okay, so you get this in this yin yang, like perfect center yin yang position, and you have to drill it. Which again, this is where the effort part comes in, with which you kind of disagree, but I think is inevitable. Although I know it's So okay, let me clarify our disagreement here, because you're saying all of the things that the book is saying, in the sense that, yeah, Satori, well, I mean, not Satori, but Buddhahood can be reached right now because you're already the Buddha, and that realization should make you, right? But I'm saying breaking your will into realizing that you must think through intuition, even if it's kind of a backwards process after socialization into all this self-consciousness, right? Are you following me?
Yes.
Is effort. And I understand that, like, if your whole goal is to strive towards the Satori, you're going to kind of put a bullet in your foot, right? But it's kind of inevitable.
You sound so foreign today, dude. Shoot yourself in the foot.
And then there's also, what's the thing where you put a stick in your tires? You know that one? You know the image, because the image comes up, right? The guy on the bicycle putting a stick in his front tire.
Oh, yeah.
But that's an expression as well.
I'm not sure it's an expression. I don't know if there's any expression that rolls off the tongue with that, but it's a good image to have.
Splinter into the rotary. Okay, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that I agree, and I don't see your problem with running either. See, the sitting meditation, as you exemplified last episode, is hard. You're sort of in the middle state, but you would be in a too rigid state when you first starting meditating, because you said you tried sitting and it was really hard. I know for a fact that I can't sit cross-legged with my back absolutely straight. I just have to curve it. I just can't have my back straight. But the point is just getting to a point where you're sort of in a flow state. I think that's why those examples are given of jujitsu and archery.
Jujitsu.
And archery and stuff. It's just something that you've practiced, and that, as I was saying about swimming earlier, you're in it. You're just doing it. You're not thinking about right arm, left arm, this muscle flex. Although you can, right? If you force or if you try to be self-conscious and try to micro adjust your movements. And it's the same with running. You run for a while, or not continuously for a while, but I mean over time.
Yeah.
For a couple of years you run, and then you're completely comfortable with running, and you're not thinking about it anymore. While you're running, you could be making your grocery list with no focus on your feet or anything.
You're very right. That's a good catch, because you could even go to the most extreme example of what I meant earlier about, like, oh, you wouldn't meditate while running, right? But like, you can take a soldier in the middle of a battle, and you can imagine him being trained.
He knows the moves, like he holds the shield and pokes the stick.
Exactly. Because like those Greeks that were trained from the age of 6 or whatever, like Athenians, I don't know.
They're probably entirely in a flow state the whole time.
They're probably in a flow state, like, oh, head here. I mean, no, they're not even thinking, right?
Yeah. And like that becomes very complicated, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, I know this pattern of him moving his right foot 45 degrees forward 2 meters and then slicing like this. I know what to do. 100%. And you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, again, all of those things you said, that's not what he's thinking right now, but yes. And the interesting thing about that is a level 3. Because at level 1, you would say something like I would say, it's like, well, you wouldn't get in a flow state or meditate when you're at war.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like the not thinking about the good and bad. You would think it's at an extreme, but then when you get to level 3, you're like, well, you can meditate at war because actually it's all in the center, because it's all part of the human experience. And that's what Buddhahood is.
Right. It's just getting accustomed to human experience, and it could be whatever, because everything you experience is human experience.
And it's all in the center, right?
Yeah, I think I didn't think about it that way before.
I just did. That's the thing. But again, my biggest point was, like, I wasn't that wrong. My biggest point was, if you were to standardize it, you would take this, for a level 1, you would take this middle ground of sitting in a toned position.
Right.
And boom, sit there, meditate for 8 hours. You'll understand what this all means eventually.
Yeah,
right?
maybe that's the thing. It's just, I think, as I was saying earlier, the problem is not with sitting meditation. The problem is with emphasis on sitting meditation. It's not about sitting meditation per se. It's just a good way to industrialize it, right?
Yeah. And if you were to put it on a pedestal for the practice of Zen, you would be missing the point.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Maybe we'll backtrack to chapter 1 of part 2, because I completely forgot. Empty and Marvelous. It's a lot about this Matsu guy, I think. But let's get to Zazen and the Quan. And a lot of these Satori moments, right? Is that where it was?
I guess, but so Zazen is sitting meditation.
Yeah.
And Quan is the category of Zen Buddhism that focuses on problems as a way of reaching Satori.
And that was created for the standardization, right? So it's like a standardized test, as much as Zen is willing to create one.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the way I understood it, at least, is that those are the two big divisions of Zen Buddhism these days. It's Zazen, sitting meditation, or Kwan, the problems that your master gives you and you try to solve them.
Here's the thing to tie a few things we've been saying together. You are primarily Buddhas. You are not going to be Buddhas for the first time. This is not an iota of a thing to be called error in your inborn mind. If you have the least desire to be better than you actually are, if you hurry up to the slightest degree in search of something, you are already going against the unborn.
What's an iota?
Yes. So this is all about the non-forcefulness of things. Can I find at least one? Can you entertain them as I search for this? Do a Buddha.
Hit the Buddha?
Hit the Buddha right now. Can you reach Satori on camera?
And those that understand that I've reached Satori.
Yeah. So the ignorant man will laugh. But that's why it's the Dharma.
Which we don't know what it is. So the two big divisions are Zazen and Kwan. Kwan, I think we'll get into more, are just a series of problems that are offered. As we were saying before, the master says, oh, which way is the water swirling in the sink if I let it go? And the point is something like, it doesn't matter. You have to answer in a counterintuitive way. And it's actually like a program that's built, which is counterintuitive to Zen Buddhism, I think, but it's these 5 steps that you take, and these are a series of problems in the first one, another series of problems in the second one, and you progress further, but it's always supervised by a master, and he's the one that makes you progress when he deems that you've understood.
Yep. Okay. Let me get a few. I found these pages of like pure gold where I was just understanding everything, and I wanted to put them in a podcast, and I didn't take notes. Now I'm just selecting random passages, which maybe I understand to a degree or not, but I'm going to go with them because I don't want to search for the whole time.
Bro forgot Satori.
A monk asked Chao Chu, for what reason did the first patriarch come from the West? This is a formal question, asking for the central point of Bodhidharma's teaching, of Zen itself. Chao Chu answered, the cypress tree in the yard. Aren't you trying, said the monk, to demonstrate it by means of an objective reality? I am not, retorted the master. For what reason, then, did the first patriarch come from the West? The cypress tree in the yard. Notice how Chao Chu whips the monk out of his conceptualization about the answer. When Tzu Shan was asked, what is the Buddha? He answered, 3 pounds of flax. Upon this, Yu Wan comments, various answers have been given by different masters to the question, what is the Buddha? None, however, can excel Tung Shan's 3 pounds of flax, as regards its irrationality, which cuts off all passage of speculation. Some comment that Tung Shan was weighing flax at that moment, hence the answer. Still others think that, as the questioner was not conscious of the fact that he himself was the Buddha, Tung Shan answered him in this indirect way. Such are all like corpses, for they are utterly unable to comprehend the living truth. There are still others who take the 3 pounds of flax as the Buddha. What wild and fantastic remarks they make. Right, so apparently this is one of the best answers in Buddhism, the 3 pounds of flax, which of course, for anyone who's been following, understands that that's not the point of it. It's just a brilliant, it's a brilliant extreme to bring you back to the middle, I guess.
I think the way to interpret it is like, it's apparently it was a good answer at that time. Yeah. It's like, it's not an answer that you take and now I can answer 3 pounds of flax and that's going to be a good answer.
It's good because that's what came to him through his original mind in a way. Like that's what spontaneity led him to say.
I think this should be the name of the episode is you had to be there.
Oh, you had to be there.
Just it's like it's really you had to like look the guy in the eyes and be like, oh yeah, 3 pounds of flax. That is the Buddha.
I wanted us to at the end come up with fake Satori reaching stories and then evaluate the others on how credible it is according to these things.
Okay.
Because I feel like you could get it wrong, like, right? Like you could be, like a master could be walking in a field with his students, then a bee bites him, and then I don't know, he slaps the bee, and then a student says, "Why did you interfere with nature?" And then he says, I don't know.
He leans over and flicks his nose.
Exactly. Oh, no, he goes and he
Takes the stinger out.
no, he pinches the student.
Yeah. And then the student backs away and he's like, why did you interfere with the course of nature?
No. The master doesn't say anything. Oh, right. And the student doesn't say anything. The student then reaches his Satori because the master gave him a taste of pure experience in the sense that when something stings you...
He did.
No, but
Yeah.
when something stings you, you tap it.
No, I agree.
Okay, is that good?
Yeah, I think we're getting it.
Okay, well, Bee Sting Slap is the name of the episode. No, we can come up with something better throughout the episode. Okay.
It's a bee sting slapper.
It definitely is. The monk explained that he had... Okay. Fa Yen... Okay.
Wait, what story did we just read? Did we comment on it?
I'm going to read another one. We can
Okay.
bulk comment on it.
Okay.
Because, to be fair, like, Alan Watts doesn't really comment on them. He just leaves them be. Like, realistically. He ties them together to other stories.
Yeah, I think
But this is exactly-
the biggest thing is the setup before, and we're
Yeah.
supposed to get it.
And then it's a flow of, like,
Yeah.
okay, this kind of explains this kind of explains this. Okay, so I'm going to say Western names based on the first letter of these, because it's slowing down my
Eastern?
reading. Eastern. No, I'm going to say Western names based on the first letter of Fa Yen, for example. So Franklin asked the monk. Franklin asked the monk. What starts with H? Henry. Franklin asked the monk Henry or Swan Tzu.
Why are you doing it?
For everyone who wants a reference, because when I'm going to repeat Swan Tzu, he's going to become Henry.
Henrietta.
Why he never asked him any question about Zen. The monk explained that he had already attained his understanding from another master. It's a pretty good one. Pressed by Franklin for an explanation, the monk said that when he had asked his teacher, what is the Buddha, he had received the answer, Ping Ting Tung Tzu comes from fire. Comes for fire, sorry.
Peter.
A good answer. Peter comes from fire. A good answer, said Franklin, but I'm sure you don't understand. Tricky little master. Peter, explained the monk, is the god of fire. For him to be seeking for fire is like myself seeking the Buddha. I'm the Buddha already, and no asking is needed. Just as I thought, laughed Franklin. You didn't get it. The monk was so offended that he left the monastery, but later repented of himself and returned, humbly requesting instruction. You ask me, said Franklin. What is the Buddha? Inquired the monk. Peter comes for fire. The point of this motto is perhaps best indicated by two poems. So, yeah.
The problem is the guy's rational. What are you doing, man?
No, that really is the point. And I feel like
you can't pretend to understand and say like it's really pretending to understand. That's the problem. And I think that's what we're doing also, right?
exactly. No,
That's what we're doing is we're pretending to understand what it's like to truly be in the moment because that's what Satori is. And we're like, yeah, we get it. And we're explaining it. That's a problem though.
And I think the difference between the two, because there are a lot of parallels, right? When we talk about level 1, 2, and 3, it's really, at level 1, you see the mountains and the trees as mountains and trees. At level 2, you think it's something else, and something like the mountain isn't the mountain. And at level 3, you come back to seeing the mountain for the mountain. But I'm guessing you wouldn't even call it a mountain because now the mountain, like a mountain is just a word and a symbol and whatever. And again, I'm speaking in level 1 terms. And this guy, I'm sorry. So the difference, I think, is us being able to discuss it. But the reason why we're not Buddhas, we're not living constant satori's, we don't have the one-pointedness of mind, is because we're not at level 3. Now, all of these insights would be attained through experience. So experiences are kind of a trolley to level 3, but it's all a parallel, right? So all the things we're saying now in this episode are all insights you feel at level 3, and you're constantly living them in a way, right? And in the same way, like if you encountered what we just said as a newcomer to Zen, you'd get really frustrated, like the guy, by not understanding, like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure that's the insight. Of course, like somebody actually told me I'm the Buddha, so why is it not true? And it's because the master asked him a spiritual question. The guy answered in rational terms, or like, explaining the spirituality, which is completely missing the point of like everything being in the center and experience being the leading factor, spontaneity being the leading factor. Like he's disregarding all the pillars. So this is a pretty good story. I liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah.
So again, this is where it gets tricky, right? Because when we get to recommendations and the practicality of this, you like even reading this book, it'll do a lot for you, but it won't do much in the grand scheme of things if you're idealizing this one pointed of mind, just as I am. It's going to take a lot more. It's going to take some breaking of the will. It's going to take something, right? There is a certain hate me as much as you want, Buddhist masters listening, but a certain amount of effort and persistence. Okay, at the very least, persistence in getting there, right? And again, getting there is a reverting. It's a sort of reverting, correct? To the original mind. Now, I haven't defined original mind. I take it to be what it is. Like last episode I said, it's the animal mind, right? The dog knows neither good nor bad. It lives in the center. It doesn't have self-consciousness. The present for it is always the present. It doesn't have memories. It just has instincts of, for example, like classical conditioning, but it's all present, right? Whatever the past may have, like whatever way the past may have affected you is summarized by the subconscious modules imprint of those experiences. And there was a quote of something like the whole of self can be summarized by the sum of all of these things you're experiencing, something like that. Do you remember that
in the book?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember.
Okay,
at all.
you don't. Okay, well, again, I should have highlighted things, but whatever.
But you can't control F, so
cannot control F. When the name is uttered, neither the Buddha nor the self there is. Namutsu Badupitsu. The voice alone is heard. Okay, well, that wasn't a passage I wanted to read. Okay, here's a passage. During the period, Kalpa, before the world was manifested, there were no names. The moment the Buddha arrives in the world, there are names. And so we clutch hold of forms. In the great Tao, there is absolutely nothing secular or sacred. If there are names, everything is classified in limits and bounds. Therefore, the old man west of the river said, "It is not mind, it is not Buddha, it is not a thing."
Huh?
Yeah. So, that one, yes.
Why do names arrive when the Buddha arrives?
Well, because the Buddha is a human, and humans categorize, humans have developed language. Now, the problem is, I'm guessing, because
But
the
at the
Tao
same
is
time,
everything, but is the Buddha everything?
But at the same time, the Buddha is the least human if humanness is defined by categorization.
Well, maybe the idea of humans have created categorization, because at some point in the book, he does say, like, being Zen is the purest expression of humanness.
Uh-huh.
at the core of which there is kind of no right and wrong. See, this is good because we're getting more confused as the episode goes, which is kind of the point, yes? Also, at some point it says that I guess he doubts this, right? But the power of the Satori, awakening again, for those who forgot, is proportional to the doubt in this whole process. Right?
Uh-huh.
I found that interesting. I don't know where to place that.
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
I
I
guess
don't doubt it at all.
Because, yeah, that's
I
the
believe.
thing. But that's the thing. So let's put it like this, right? If you believe and have the will to reach it, but the only way to reach it is to break your will, but you don't doubt it at all, you're not going to have that much of the Satori. But if you're doubtful, it's hard to imagine a way in which you'll be awakened in the first place. Because if there is no will, what is there to break to make your intuition come through?
I think it's about contrast, as we said before.
Yeah.
If you have no doubt,
Check it out.
Sorry?
Check it out. Sorry.
If you have no doubt, Satori will not be big, because all big means is compared to the doubt. You have no doubt, Satori is small. If you have big doubt, the contrast of snapping into being in the present is going to be big. A big contrast between doubting, which is presumably being attached to rationality and categorization and higher order thinking, and then you slam all that down and you go back to Satori and you go to oneness of experience, or however you say it, and it's a big contrast, right? I think that's a big point, is that big and small is all about contrast, and that's illusory.
I think it's illusory, but
Illusory also.
Right. And
Satori is Satori. There's no big Satori.
Maybe, but okay. In that passage, I think you're right as by contrast, but I think that's also why you never say you got Satori, because the bigger it is, like the deeper you go back down to hell, right? The highest highs carry the lowest lows, and this awakening state, because it's only momentary, whatever comes after, it's almost like you don't want to acknowledge that it happened.
See, that's what I wanted to ask you. What is a master then? If Satori is momentary for everyone, what the hell is a master, and what's his qualification?
Well, there's no way that was the goal. He's living with the one-pointedness of mind. He's had episodes
constantly. So he's always in Satori.
I'm guess. Well, no. But that's the thing. Satori isn't one-pointedness of mind necessarily. One-pointedness of mind is developed. Satori is an awakening state where, okay, I'm going to tell you the prior way I saw it. Maybe this is wrong, but it's kind of an insight into, if I were to use a mental imagery, it's like seeing the entire universe and realizing that every atom that constitutes you, like seeing where it's been in all of the history of the universe. Like just feeling that, right? Not seeing it. Or have you read Borges?
The answer is yes.
No, but not the clove, but like the thing in the basement.
Right. The thing, the point under the stairs where you can see the whole universe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah,
the Aleph.
The Aleph. Yeah, right. It feels kind of like that in the sense that he got 10 seconds in the Aleph, right?
Yeah, I have to read Borges again.
Right. Maybe we could read it for this. But it's like you already know, right? You come out of the Satori, it's been 10 seconds, you experience the entirety of time and the entirety of like matter and Tao, and you see the Tao or something. I don't know, I'm probably saying it all wrong. And you come out of it and you're grasping onto all of those things, and they're all leaving your mind, but you know you've experienced them. And if you concentrate on one specific thing, and this is why, again, we could summarize it a little bit just to understand what we're talking about, but this is why the guy in the Aleph gets addicted to the Aleph, because he always grasps at what he saw and he wants it to experience it again. He saw the entirety of time and whatnot. He got a few episodes of that gave him insights into his own life, but he also saw the entirety of everything also. But that's all leaving his brain, right? He can't access it. He can access it less and less through memory as the time goes on. And I think that's what Satori is, right? Because if we have had episodes of Satori, they've probably felt amazing and kind of supernatural and all of these, kind of the Jesus state, right? The supernatural,
Altered state of mind.
Yeah, altered state of mind. But as time goes, you kind of forget and you get into the kind of mundane life and you forget what that felt like, but you definitely have this flash of, that was awesome. But the experience itself and the details of it are leaving you bit by bit. Right? I don't know. I kind of went on a rant there. I wasn't flow state during that rant, I'm gonna say.
And then the problem is with grasping at it, and that makes us less likely to experience it again. And the thing with masters is that they don't grasp at it, and because of that, they reach Satori more often.
Yeah, and there is like the way it's placed in the book, the Satori moment, is pretty much always when they become masters.
Yeah, but
You're
that's
right.
why.
Like
That's
I
why.
understand,
Yeah, that's why I get them confused together. If they are separate things, I get them confused because he often says that is when he had his awakening. And what else? What else does that mean? But having Satori and staying in Satori.
But
But what you're saying makes
I'm
sense,
pretty
yeah.
sure I can. Like I saw this phrase that it's always only it lasts a few moments or something. And if what I am saying makes sense, then maybe the masters are wise enough to disregard it. And if you do disregard it, in the sense that like you acknowledge it when it's there, you live in the present, you get all of the things that it could give you, but then you don't get addicted to the Aleph, which again, we're going to get to what that is shortly. And you enjoy the moment, right? You live in the present. It's completely disconnected from the past. So once you pass the Satori moment, you're like, okay, if it happens again, it'll happen again. But I'll just keep living with one pointedness of mind. I don't care. I don't cling. And I'm not going to acknowledge that it happened because, first of all, it didn't happen to me. It happened to past me. That person doesn't exist, right? Second, thinking about how great it was leaves me desiring it, which is, again, is an Adam and Eve situation. And it's going to lead you right to hell, right? That's the way I see it. Okay, sorry. Small interjection of the Aleph, right? Just this guy stumbles in his basement, or not his basement, probably his basement.
I think it's someone showing the Aleph to someone else. So not his basement, and he gets shown the Aleph.
Yeah, and it carries the entirety of time and space, probably. And he has this kind of few minute voyage through all of it, and just in the way that you would imagine. I don't know, you'd flow through space and see, like, I guess in the movie there's a pretty good representation. It's like you're going at light speed through a portal and you're seeing glimpses of everything, but he's experiencing all these things. When he comes out of it, he knows it, not in any way that he could ever verbalize it, right? And he knows a few things, right? He knows someone's gonna die in his life or stuff like that.
And that's why Borges is great, is because he's describing the undescribable in a way that it's not described, but he wrote it in a book. It's there, but it's undescribable and it's written down.
But
in
you
the book.
feel it. You feel it when you
great.
read the whole thing, right? So all of that to say, he gets addicted to the Aleph because like of what that experience is. And I think the ultimate conclusion, if he was a Buddhist master, he wouldn't have done that.
Gotten addicted?
Yeah.
Did we do an episode on the Aleph?
No, it's a very bad wizard episode.
Yeah, we've done very bad wizard episodes.
No, we didn't do that one.
Okay.
We didn't do that one, unfortunately. Pretty good. So,
what is bro yapping about?
Anything more?
That was the last chapter. It's about Zazen and Quan. I read the first pages of the last chapter.
Okay.
Did you?
No, I just looked at the pictures.
I looked at the pictures too, but I didn't. There's a representation of Bodhidharma.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Portrait. Well, there's
Oh, all
two
right, with
people.
the student, not like
Yeah.
in any. He looks pretty sad. I'm not gonna lie.
What are you doing, grasping?
The name.
Stop grasping.
The name. Yeah. Why are you clinging to the concept of sad when the human experience of sad is so much richer? The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. Naming is the mother of the 10,000 things. Right. So again, anti-categorization. I love that. I do think categorization is very limiting. This was addressed in the first part, where some things are noun actions like fist or whatever, right? So the way humans categorize experience distances us from actually experiencing that experience, which is why I was also surprised how it wasn't really mentioned the value of getting these young boys into Zen and like the ease of teaching them, because Zen is a reversal of socialization. And you take these 7-year-old boys, sure, like they grow up in Asian families, like they've been disciplined surely until they were 7, but after that, like the job to do is so much lesser. Are they getting 30 years of experience too before they can reach whatever?
It's a good question. Yeah.
Like I feel like it'd be
'Cause
easier.
it's sort of like a childlike state, definitely.
Now, Bruce Lee, I'm guessing he was a Buddhist,
I don't know.
right? And he said, like, the way he approached martial arts is that, obviously, the famous quote, water becomes the thing where you put it. So if you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. And maybe it was a glass originally, but it got lost in translation. He said it in English, by the way.
Yeah, is the point be the water?
Yeah, be the water.
Okay. You didn't say that.
Now, it doesn't matter. So the way he approached martial arts is that he said, look, I practice, my kicks, my whatever. I train my body, millions of times until it's absolutely perfect and it flows without thinking, right? So flow state, aka meditation, right? Because he said that it's an art because it allows him to express his original self. I heard all of this in an interview. His original self, and like his heart can speak through his body when he's fighting because he's trained his body to be able to do all of those movements.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And in the same way, you take people like Dostoevsky or masters of words and like Borges, and because they've practiced, speaking in language, the very thing that is limiting us from understanding the Tao becomes so much less limited. And you come to understand like, oh, okay, Dostoevsky's the best psychologist ever. Oh, okay, Borges can describe the undescribable. All of this because he probably drilled and has become a master of language. Now, sure, we're still humans. You can still not explain the Tao or something like that. But through this drilling, through this flow state, through this practice, persistence, discipline, people can express their original self. They can revert to this original self. And it's counterintuitive, but it feels to me like that's the key, right? You're born with this kind of heart that wants to speak, but the words are so unskilled until you master them. And that can be absolutely anything. Now, I forgot if it's here that I read this or in the other book, but I think it's in the other book. By Deci, whatever. And he said that a master painter once said, like, the experience of painting doesn't have the goal of having a painting at the end. That is just a byproduct. You're letting your heart speak, and if a painting results from that most of the time, that's fine. Right? This is why I say that this whole, well, again, I mean, it's the whole point to be counterintuitive, but this whole thing of saying like it is the no effort, it is the no thought or wu wei, right? The Zen is non-clinginess, right? No effort, non-clinginess, but the only way to reach that is effort. Whoops, it kind of just flows out. It's but like magic, right? Which is why, yeah, my conclusion is that mechanically the way to get to this whole thing is persistence. Mechanically. Not like metaphysically. Metaphysically, it is to understand that you were always the Buddha. Is that fair?
I can see that. I'm just thinking of it in the frame of life as a whole. Because one
Like
person...
a donut hole? Okay. Yin yang
editor,
donut.
cut that out.
I've never seen a yin yang donut. I feel like, yeah,
Mm,
it wouldn't work, right?
yeah, but like the ones with no holes and then you just draw yin yang on it.
Yeah.
You would have to make them different flavors, and you have the black
See,
within the white and the white within the
Black
black.
chocolate, white chocolate is, I don't know. White chocolate is
What's
just
a white
bad.
chocolate donut?
I don't know. White chocolate is just bad because it doesn't have cocoa, right? It's actually sugar and milk. No, it is.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
No, it's like there's no basis of
Cacao?
Cacao, yeah, cacao.
Yeah.
Isn't that cocoa?
Coconut.
No,
When you say cocoa...
like COCOA. Cocoa. What were you saying?
I think it's cacao.
Yeah, but that sounds like douchebaggy to say. Okay.
So before you cut me off, what was I saying though?
You were recounting the Buddha mind and nature and body.
Oh no, I was saying, I'm thinking of it in the frame of life as a whole, not a donut hole, not a yin yang donut. One person can be good at everything and be in a flow state at everything, right?
Yes.
So what about an enlightened person that's been through the effort and while painting is in a flow state and is, I don't know, a Buddha? And then that person tries playing basketball, but he's really bad at it.
No, the
Not-
self-consciousness. It's the self-consciousness. You just have to
So
think
he's
about
not a Buddha then. Well, that makes sense to me. But it doesn't. I don't think it makes sense as a story, right? You become the Buddha, and now you're
Right.
the Buddha.
Yeah.
But
But that's the thing. They keep doing what they're doing, and that's part of the one pointedness. Maybe it can be like just like a life path one pointedness, because the Buddhist monk isn't gonna go like change countries. They're gonna live on the same mountaintop they live their whole.
no, you know what the thing is? I'm thinking about, like, if I went to see a Buddhist monk, I think the problem is I think like, oh look, I give him a basketball, he tries it, and he's really bad at it, and therefore he's self-conscious, and therefore he's bad. But that's not the thing. The thing is, I give him a basketball, and he like puts it under his arm, or like kicks it because that's what he wants to do. He doesn't care.
Yes, true, and yeah, you did trick me, because that's like in your
Wanting to play wanting to be good at basketball, whatever being good at basketball means, is clinginess.
Yeah, and also the other thing is, it's like saying that all athletes are Buddhas, but if you make them change the sport, they're not. That's not true at all. Like, it's
Right.
missing the point. But the other big, like, really great story that I just fully remembered, but I couldn't find it, is that a master tests two students, and he asks them, "What is this?" And he's holding a fan. He gives one the fan. He opens the fan, and he wins himself with it.
He opens the fan and he starts swinging it at his face.
Up, down. Now, the master's like, okay, this is good.
Good.
And he
Yeah.
gives it to the other one.
Yeah.
He scratches his neck with it, opens it, puts a piece of cake on it, and gives it back to the master. And the master is really satisfied.
Right.
Now, by this point, you should understand the point. And the point is, the first one, okay, at least he didn't say, "This is a fan." Because that would have been just like, get out of my monastery.
You can open it up and use it to swing it.
The fan itself is the experience of what it's useful for. Now, the second guy understood that it is through mere categorization and kind of the utility of it that the first guy
limited
the
the experience
excuse
of
to
the fan
exactly
to
yeah. But in fact,
airing
the
himself.
fan
with
is
it.
just that arrangement of atoms, and it could do all of the things that the second guy did with it. So he did them.
Yeah.
And of course, he didn't say that he did them. He did them.
Yeah,
And therefore, boom. And I think that's a really good way to conclude it because
it is.
you
That's
can
the
like,
point.
yeah, that's the point. In fact, it's the whole Zen, right? That story is Zen. It's spontaneous because you couldn't contrive that action. Well, again, you could, but then the master would spot
Yeah,
it.
just no categories outside of categories.
Yes. Okay. Practical. I mean, we've been sprinkling it in. Practical. Again, all of these episodes are read this book, right? It's pleasurable. The metaphors are awesome. The stories are cool. You understand it by infusion. It's like a bag of. This book is like a bag of tea, placed in the water of your mind.
Slowly diffusing through.
Right, and we're
Close
just
your
poking,
eyes.
we're just like
open your ears.
we're just like sitting across from the glass of warm water, trying to throw little herbs into it, missing sometimes, getting them sometimes.
That's us.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
And you're just getting these like little infusions of tea, and then boom, the leaf is already gone. But then if you want to get the whole thing, that's okay. It's okay too. So yeah, Alan Watts, The Way of Zen. Why did we not finish it?
Because we said we wouldn't, I guess, at some
No,
point.
because I thought there were only 3 chapters in the
Yeah.
second part.
So we
So I
said,
said-
yeah.
I said, read 2 of the 3 chapters, but there were 4. There were 4 chapters.
Wait, where?
The 2 we read, the second one which we read for another episode, and the art, Zen and Arts.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I'll probably read it for my personal use. Maybe it could be an opening segment, just finishing out the book. Maybe, you know what? For next week, we could do opening segment, and then the full segment could be like a simple movie or something. So that's 20 pages in a movie. That's good.
Simple-minded movie.
I'm really happy with that because that lightens the load. Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Next week, a light little recap of the Zen in Arts. Hopefully, you've been following through on this Zen series. Thanks a lot for listening. What's our Thinkin Bros rated R rating? I don't know. Is the rated R copyright? Okay, so whatever.
1, 2, 3. Donut.
Okay. Well,
I got you.
I was actually so
Got you.
I was so self-conscious that I didn't even utter a word. So you kind of beat me in Buddhahood. Buddhahood
2,
out
3.
of 10. That was really unpleasant. I'm gonna have to cut all of that sound. But for those that didn't see,
Dude, you should write donut out of 10, dude.
yeah. But for those that didn't see, Alex, through the amalgamation of atoms that constitutes his what humans call notebook atomy.
Now, what do you think that means?
Now,
Wrong.
there is somewhere hiding a really good episode name, but I'm gonna miss it.
I think what I said earlier was you had to be there. But
Okay.
the name of the episode should be You Have to Be There.
Right.
That's the
good.
point, dude. You
That's
have to be
pretty
there.
good. That's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. And again, inside joke.
But
of
this is
only
definitely
understanding-
a title rich episode. Like if we really thought
yeah,
about it.
but I've kind of
No,
calmed
but
down
I think
on that.
You Have to Be There is really good.
Yeah, you have to be there. Okay, what am I gonna put? Donut out of 10? Sure, it has to be unique, unique thing for this episode.
Donut out of 10. More information. Thank you, Thinking Bros.
Now, for those who haven't read, I mean, okay, look, the majority of the people who are gonna listen to this haven't listened to Alan Watts specifically. One person has.
Don't know what level 1 to 3 is.
Yeah, no. The majority of the people know because I can't
Stop
close my mouth.
talking
Yeah,
about it.
exactly. Haven't read the book or anything about Alan Watts or maybe about Buddhism at all. And it may be my level 1 arrogance, but I feel like we've conveyed it pretty well.
I think it's pretty rambly, but if you listen to both of our episodes, you get the image.
Or
And I
all
think
three.
all three of our episodes.
Yeah, the one.
Oh
on
yeah. I
spontaneity.
think you get the image, and I think that's also how you get Zen Buddhism too. It's instantaneous. It's just like every piece of information you get about it gets you to it in some way, and you just have to like listen to all of it, and something will get you there.
And that's the framework of how you build an intuition as well, right? A doctor who, let's say, a patient walks in, they just feel like the patient has this disease. What is that? That
The
is 20
foundation
years
of that feeling is
that is 20 years of medical training and constant, thinking about symptoms and identifying what is true and what's not about a patient and testing and blah, blah, blah. And then at some point, the doctor is so good that he just looks at the patient. He's like, okay, this is what he's got. Same thing with Zen, right? Practice it, listen to it, hear it,
live it.
make theories, fail, live it. And at some point, the intuition will be built of being able to answer donut to what is the body of the Buddha or something like that.
And you'll be like us.
Buddhas. So thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next week. All out of order. I'll show you out of order. Go to thinkinbros.com for more information, or contact us at thinkinbros@gmail.com for feedback. And our Chris.
Alex